now entering the truth zone, deep into the vortex of the information revolution with your host, Michael B.
My name is Michael B, and this is The Truth Zone. And yes, coming to you live, deep in the heart of the state of Texas. And today is episode 2, and it's part 2 of how and when the New World Order came to the United States. Now, a lot of people are going to argue that it actually started with Abraham Lincoln and his widespread federalization of this country. And even Karl Marx wrote him a letter congratulating him on federalizing the United States. You can also say that the 14th Amendment, and I will cover that at a later time, really sealed the fate and made this country a corporation. You could also argue, and I encourage all of you that are listening to pull up the 1783 Treaty of Paris, do a Control F, and type in Prince of the United States, and go see what you find. I think you're going to find that very interesting. And then look at America's closest ally. Look at what country really created the present-day landscape of the Middle East. And I'm going to cover that down the road at another time as well. But today I want to continue with how the Communist Manifesto came into the United States January 10th, 1963. And ask yourselves, in 2017, how many of these points are active today? So let's move on to hit point number 11. Promote the United Nations as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one world government with its own independent armed forces. Do we not see the UN having their alleged peacekeeping force all around the world? Do we not see that today in 2017? In parentheses, some communist leaders believe the world can be taken over as easily by the UN as by Moscow. Sometimes these two centers compete with each other, as they are now doing so in the Congo back in the 60s. Well, do we not see the UN actually not even competing against, but in conjunction with the United States and Great Britain to further the imperialist agenda, all in the name of human kindness, by the way? All in the name of humanitarian efforts, by the way. And we have to have a military presence everywhere. Because we have to be the policeman. We have to be the sheriff. We have to impose our will on everybody else all in the name of human rights. And yet Saudi Arabia, one of the most cruelest and barbaric countries that you could ever have the misfortune of finding yourself in, they're head of the human rights. If that's not a slap in the face, if that, folks, they're taunting us. They're absolutely taunting us with Black Lives Matter, with Antifa nonsense, transgender nonsense, the games they're playing, the dangerous games they're playing with our military, which I hope Trump will reverse. They're taunting us right to our faces, ladies and gentlemen. And quite frankly, you know, Facebook is a wonderful litmus test for how people are reacting and thinking to the world around us. It really is. And I find it an interesting paradox where the same people that criticized Hillary Clinton supporters, Barack Obama supporters, as blind sycophants, they're doing the same thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump can absolutely do no wrong. Now, who really believes that? I don't. And I'm just going to tell you this. I've taken a lot of beatings on Facebook just for being mildly critical. Well, look. This is the Truth Zone, and I'm going to praise him when warranted, and I'm going to be critical of him as warranted. And I'm just going to make this statement right now. Donald Trump, you better send your daughter packing and let her do her clothesline thing. You better send your son-in-law, Jared Kushner, packing and let him do his real estate thing, which, by the way, he's a dismal failure. And it's funny. Look at this picture, right? Everybody that was against Donald Trump, and obviously, overwhelmingly, they were liberal Democrats, communists. How Donald Trump was given his empire, and because he did, 5 Chapter 11 bankruptcies, he was a failure. The Republican nominee, and now the president. Whereas Jared Kushner was handed an empire. Trump got $1 million loan, which he had to pay back to his father with interest, made a multi-billion-dollar empire. Jared Kushner was given an empire, basically, and he's a dismal failure. Failure, and the kid is a Democrat. Yet I don't hear the liberals saying that Jared Kushner is a dismal failure, ha ha ha, and Trump is stupid for having him around. I don't hear that, though. Donald Trump, you have snakes in your inner circle, and they go as far as your own family. And I find it interesting that Donald Jr. and Eric Trump have been basically dead silent since he became president. I don't see tweets from those guys anymore. I don't see speeches from those guys anymore. Nothing. I mean, they're MIA, and it's all Ivanka and her husband. During the campaign, it was basically spread out. Donald and Eric were tweeting like crazy. Just as much as Ivanka, if not more so, and now they're gone. I understand they're running the company. Well, Donald, give your daughter a job, okay? because she's dangerous, folks. She's hanging out with neocons, another branch of the Communist Party, and it's very dangerous. Donald Trump, you haven't drained the swamp. If anything, you've allowed people that got you elected, people that advised you to be this patriot, to be this Rambo-type anti-establishment guy, you've allowed them to be dismissed, and they've been replaced with establishment neocons. Very dangerous. So that's my rant on that at this point. So, capture one or both of the political parties. Well, we know for a fact, it's quite blatant, that the Democratic Party are they're pure communists. Pure communists. They're not social democrats. They're not progressives. They're communists. They've been totally hijacked. The Republican Party, I'm going to say, is 80% hijacked. The neocons are absolute communists in the sense that they're totalitarians. They want war. They want war. They want bigger federal government. They want total takeover. They want state and local rights severely minimized. All in the name of they know better than everybody else. In the Republican Party, we have the Freedom Caucus, which Donald Trump trampled on. Very bad. We have constitutional purists like Mike Lee, which again, he's been very quiet of late. I don't hear much from him. Unless I'm missing it, I don't see it. We have Rand Paul, who basically saved us from, Obamacare Part 2. But other than that, I'm going to say that you can check off hit point number 15. Both political parties have been hijacked. Use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. Boom! Have we not seen that twice? By the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals blocking Donald Trump's temporary immigration ban on what even Barack Obama listed as the 7 most dangerous countries, promoting and financing fundamental Muslim jihad. Have we not seen that? And both judges said it violates their civil rights. It's bigoted. It's prejudiced against a race. No, it's saying anyone from those countries. It could be a British national coming out of Iran wanting to come into the United States. He said no. He didn't say Muslims or Arabic peoples from those countries can't come in. He said nobody. Well, if you haven't seen pictures of people in the Middle East, some of them are as white as I am. They're not all dark. But the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said Donald Trump was being racist, and they blocked those travel bans, which we know that this influx of the so-called refugees are severely weakening our country's institutions. We know that to be a fact. Hit point 17. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and I'll change the wording from communist to progressive propaganda. Soften the curriculum. I'll say that again. Soften the curriculum. Well, let's see. Affirmative action. No child left behind. Multiculturalism, where we have many schools just catering to Spanish-speaking children, not encouraging them to learn English. And I want to expand on that. See, I know with just 45 minutes, I'm going to be going into part 3 of NWO. I want to expand on that. I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, what multiculturalism has created in this country. Now follow me. We have 2, let's say, Mexican children coming into the United States. One Mexican child is put into these multiculturalism classes where they're just going to continue to be taught Spanish by a Spanish teacher, having a budget for that, and he grows up and is extremely limited in the English language. You have the second Mexican child who goes through the traditional American school system and comes out of it bilingual. He is just as proficient in Spanish as he is in English. They both want to start up a landscaping business. I know I'm stereotyping, but just stick with me. They both start their own landscaping business. The one that could only speak Spanish and the bilingual individual both come into the same neighborhood looking for business. They knock on your door because you put an ad in, help wanted, I need some landscaping on my property. Mexican man number 1 comes, can't speak a lick of English. You can't tell him what you need done to convey to his workers for your property. Mexican guy number 2 comes, knocks on your door. You're able to communicate everything you want done. I want rocks over here. I want bushes over there. He says, yes, sir, madam, no problem. He then speaks Spanish to his workers. They know what to do. Who are you going to hire? Are you going to hire Mexican man number 1 that you can't convey what your needs are? Or are you going to hire the bilingual guy that you can communicate to in English and then he can communicate to his people in Spanish and get the job done? Obviously, the answer is you're going to go with the bilingual. So I ask you, who has a better chance of success? Mexican man number 1, who can only be pigeonholed into doing business with people that can speak Spanish, or Mexican guy number 2, who can do business with English and Spanish-speaking people? Who has a better chance of success? You know the answer. So, what multiculturalism has created is an indentured servant slave class. Okay? An indentured servant slave class that the progressives, the sweet, loving liberals are telling you that all cultures should be encouraged. They don't have to learn English. That they love them. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Come on in. Keep your own identity. You don't have to become an American. And then you have the neocons, which in a way you could say are even more sly. Look, I don't have to spend much money. I don't have to hire an American that wants maybe $12, $15 an hour. I could hire that guy for $8. I could maximize my profits through minimal overhead. You get the picture? And how far do you think that these Latinos coming over to this country and not being encouraged to adopt the American culture, to learn to speak English, to learn about the Constitution, to learn about civics, how far do you think they're going to become stockbrokers? Do you think they're going to become CPAs? Hello? Smell the coffee. How far in life, how much of the American dream that everybody talks about, how much can they actually get a piece of? Maybe a crumb. So, that's what has been created here, all in the name of peace and love, huggy huggy, kissy kissy. So, get control of the schools, soften the curriculum, lower the standards, and that's why, education-wise, countries like China and India are kicking our asses. That's why our engineering skills are in the toilet. Our technical skills are in the toilet. And American companies are, quote-unquote, complaining that there aren't enough skilled workers in America to hire, which I know is BS, but they make that claim, which then the neocons in the government, and they're in both parties, the neocons then make up these free trade agreements. Oh, well, then I understand. Then you can go elsewhere. And let me just say this from personal experience of 30 years being in a certain industry and watching it devolve. Yes, devolve. I can tell you this. When you pay someone $40 an hour, you're going to get $40 an hour service. When you pay someone $15 an hour, or whatever the case may be, for the same product, well, you're going to get $15 an hour results. Can we not see that in our equipment? Can we not see that in our computers? Can we not see that in our vacuum cleaners? When I was a kid, you bought one Hoover vacuum cleaner, you were set for life. Now you're lucky if you get a year and a half out of them. And they're so cheap and they're so disposable. Who goes to a vacuum or a TV repairman anymore? You just throw the damn thing out and you get a new one. So, soften the curriculum. Gain control of all student newspapers, number 18. Well, it goes beyond that. Just total control of the universities. They didn't stop at their school newspapers. No, they've done it everywhere. They've done it in their after-school social groups, sports. I mean, forget it. And I had skimmed down yesterday because of time constraints about the student riots. We've got that. Infiltrate the press. Well, yeah. Come on. Mainstream media, I don't even have to cover that in depth. You know about that. Gain control of key positions in radio, TV. Yeah, I covered that one. That's a slam dunk. We know all about that. We talked about the promote pornography and homosexuality and all of that stuff. And persecute those that don't go along with the program. Well, who overwhelmingly are not going along with the program? Christians. Everybody else is given a pass. Only the Christians, and not all of them, are holding fast to their faith and belief. Well, you know what? Check that. Check that. Because I bet you Muslims aren't doing business with homosexuals. But since the Muslims are being used to take down Christianity and the West, they're getting a pass. The courts aren't going after Muslim businesses that turn their backs on homosexuals or whatnot because, well, the Muslims are needed right now. It's only the Christians that are being hit, and the Jews, well, they're MIA. I mean, they're quiet as church mice now. You don't hear anything out of them. Nothing. I mean, it's like the Jews have disappeared. Certainly, at least in Texas. Discredit the founding fathers. Call the American Constitution inadequate and old-fashioned. Those are hit points 29 and 30. We have seen the last 3 presidents blatantly disparage and, as far as condemn, the Constitution of the United States and the Founding Fathers. I can't think of, right now off the top of my head, of what Bill Clinton said. And it's ironic because he was more of a traditional conservative when it came to illegal immigration. When it came to gun rights, yeah, he let the gun restriction expire. Gun sales went up. Gun crime went down during his administration. He was tougher on illegal immigration than he is now, and than his wife in name only, the wino. He talked about building a wall in the 90s or fortifying the border. Hillary Clinton talked about it back in the 90s. And actually they've 180 due to the flavor of public opinion. But he disparaged our foundations. George W. blatantly said that the Constitution was an outdated piece of paper. Throw it in the garbage. And Barack Obama, that American-hating communist, Muslim, too bad, he's a Muslim, folks, because you can't get into those madrasa schools in Indonesia if you're not a Muslim. Fact. You can't get into those schools. For you to get into a madrasa school in Indonesia and other Muslim countries, which Indonesia is the biggest populated Muslim country on the planet still, as I recall. You can't get into those schools unless you're a Muslim. Fact. So, he blatantly, Barack Hussein, and I still can't wrap it around my head that 7 years after 9/11, that the American people elected a man with a Muslim African name of Barack Hussein Obama. I'll never get it. I'll never get it. Forget it. Don't even talk to me. So, he openly insulted the founding fathers. Ultimately insulted it. He insulted the American dream. He said, all of you didn't build your business. The government made it happen. You didn't build your business. You can't take credit. Really? Really? So somebody else built the empires of J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie, and fast forward to the present day of Donald J. Trump. Somebody else built it. Well, I beg to differ. So the founding fathers were outdated, powdered wig wearing barbarians, and the Constitution is outdated, and we need to adopt the UN mandates, because that's the 21st century, and that's what we need to do, and it's just better for all of us. And I'm just going to ask you, as I asked yesterday, what Dr. Phil asks, how's it working out for you? Not really. So, my solution to you, ladies and gentlemen, that if you have young children, do them a big favor if you're not doing it already. And you have to do this as young as possible. Because the older that your children get, the less cooperative they're going to be to sit down with you and actually open up a book of any kind. And the two, I'm just going to use the term documents that set aside time to teach them are the Bible and the Constitution, in that order. And I'm going to use the old adage, sometimes you have to take 2 steps backwards to go 3 steps forward. Sometimes you just have to do that. So, there is nothing wrong. Matter of fact, it really is the right thing to do. We need, in this country, we need to groom the Bible and the Constitution into our children's framework. That is my solution to you. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. Give it a year. Do it for a year. And see the results you get in your home. You married people out there. If you don't have a Bible in your home, you can even go online. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and read what the Apostle Paul said what married people need to do. Try it for 6 months. Just try it. 6 months. And see what results you get. I believe what you're going to find is we don't have to adopt the latest trendy Johnny-come-lately philosophy on married life, parenting, and compassion. I don't think we need to do that. I think that it is very beneficial. It would behoove all of us to accept the fact that maybe, just maybe, all the way from Moses to Thomas Jefferson, we have all we need to create a strong foundation in our families that will stand the test of time, ladies and gentlemen. That those principles from Genesis to the United States Constitution will give us peace, love, and prosperity to times indefinite. I say to you, give it a chance. 6 months between you two spouses, husband and wife. That's all I'm going to recognize as spouse. Tough. Because that's what Jehovah says, tough. That's what nature says, tough. And give it a year with your children. Just give it a year. I think and I believe that you're going to be very happy with the results that you get. Hit points 36 and 37. Infiltrate and gain control of the unions. Infiltrate and gain control of big business. Well, yeah, we got that. Right? The neocons, the progressives, they own the table when it comes to big business and unions, and they own the government. All three are colluding for total power and domination. All three are sucking up all the free enterprise, all the private venture, all the individual liberties that we used to have. Sucking them up dry. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies, CPS, Child Protective Services. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. Well, you know what? When I was a kid, you acted up in school, you got sent to the principal's office, the parent got a note, if you were kicked out of school a day or two, you got a slap in the back of the head, message received. Now if little Johnny gets in trouble, well, hey, we have to send him to the social worker on site, sometimes call the police, which I think is amazing on a 5-year-old. Have a group parent, social worker, and principal conference about little Johnny. Come up with an action plan. Send him to a psychiatrist. Label that child ADD, ADHD, beep-a-da-pop-a-da-boop-D. And get the child on Ritalin. That's the plan. Come up with a name. Come up with an OSIS. Give little Johnny some Ritalin. And he'll be A-OK. Dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose the progressive goals. Well, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. When secular psychiatry began with Freud and Jung, B.F. Skinner, and all of these other people, homosexuality, and if there was that term back then, gender confusion took place in an individual. It was always labeled a mental disorder of some sort brought on by some sort of childhood trauma. Well, and I've got the website somewhere. I'll probably use that later on down the road when I key in on this issue. Activist groups and the government strong-armed the American Psychiatric Association. I believe that's the name, the APA, which, is somehow in some way part of the American Medical Association, to label this psychosis, if you will, another form of the natural human process, something you're born with, an alternative lifestyle that should be encouraged and groomed. And anyone that opposes it is a bigot and must be condemned. Well, that's hit point number 39, ladies and gentlemen. You better believe we've been hit with it. Well, I only have 1 minute and 15 seconds left, so guess what's going to happen? We're going to go tomorrow to part 3 of how the communist agenda, how communism has infiltrated the United States of America, and how it has shaped the American landscape of the United States of America here in the 21st century. My name is Michael B. You could find me at The Truth Zone on Facebook, open to the public. You can email me at thetruthzone27@gmail.com. You could find me on YouTube. Please subscribe. And please tell your friends if you find value. Deep into the vortex of the information revolution.